morning. Today I have the facelifted E-Class, and from afar it totally looks like the C-Class. They've updated the front and back, so let's try it out. This is the base model, E200. Interior remains largely unchanged apart from the new steering wheel, updated infotainment controls, and I've driven this car. No, actually I've driven the E53 Coupe in Thailand. Let's see what it's like. Good morning. Usually I wouldn't really turn on the camera while the sky is still dark, and the reason I on the camera is because we're in a Mercedes-Benz, and I've set the ambient lighting to a selection called Color Splash, or was it Color Mix? Okay, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's just changing color from time to time. Now I have to say, the Mercedes cabin really does make you feel like you're in a nightclub. It feels happening. It's a 9-speed gearbox. Of course, it will not be as creamy as the 6-cylinder engines, alright? But in the context of EVs these days, that's a null point. You know, you will never be able to get smooth as an EV anyway. All these ICE engines. The 5 Series does feel creamier, quieter and creamier, even with its 4-port engine. This is the base spec of the E-Class. So Mercedes actually priced this at $320. The BMW 330i is at about 300,000 earlier on, right? Of course, there's local assembly, and it's 290, you know, which is only about 20-30,000 more than a 3 Series. Right? But of course, there's the 5 Series have the 520i, 530e. BMW now has a more robust lineup in terms of this segment than the E-Class, right? And the E-Class, this is the facelift, so replacement model wouldn't be here that soon, whereas the replacement C-Class is going to be here in a few weeks' time to challenge the 3 Series, alright? Now the E-Class has always been very accomplished, other than not selling as well as the, I mean, in Malaysia, of course the F10 sold really, really well compared to the 212, because the F10 just beats the 212. And then in the G30 generation, which is against this was selling way better than the G20 at first, and then after that the facelift of the G20 arrived, and that one sold really, really well. So this facelift is much needed. But where BMW actually made the 5 Series looks way sharper and handsomer, everybody has mixed doubts about the facelift of this E-Class, because to be honest, even though many journalists say it's sportier, I can hardly use the term sporty to describe an E-Class in terms of exterior, even though the drive is pretty alright. It just looks not as executive, you know, not as limo-y for this facelift. You know, the front, the headlamps are, you know, squidgier, you know, angrier, attempting to look angrier. It almost looks like a kind uncle that got a little bit annoyed. You know, that kind of look. It is yeah. So how's the drive? It's decent. Okay, it has always been the case when you compare an E-Class with a 5 Series. But in this generation, the 5 Series is not only sportier to drive, it is also more comfortable, plusher, quieter than the E-Class. And with this facelift, it still remains the same. Apart from the looks being updated, the click wheel being changed, other than that, it more or less drives the same as the pre-facelift E-Class. So that would have meant that the 5 Series is noticeably quieter, noticeably plusher, and the demeanor of the car, where when you're driving over undulations, expansion joints, stepping on the throttle, lifting the throttle, or moving your steering wheel, everything, the 5 Series does it with better composure than the E-Class. The E-Class has a prettier cabin, yes, I get it, it just looks, it looks like an S-Class cabin here, whereas the 5 Series looks like any other BMW interior, right? But really, the moment you drive it, I mean, that in every measurable context, there's not, you cannot say this is an uncomfortable car, right? In fact, when I was driving the E-Class platform, of course, albeit that is a AMG, a baby AMG, you know, E53 AMG, the drive is good. It drives alright. I mean, this is still a rear-wheel drive platform, you know. Mercedes knows their stuff, but like always, Mercedes knows how to put in a hierarchy on what you get versus what you pay, right? In a Mercedes lineup, when you pay more, you really do feel the upgrade. And if you pay less in this context, yeah, get it. Usually cars of this segment would dampen the sensation of every input to smooth it out, you know. If you have a chart that detects, you know, sudden movements, most cars in this segment will start to ease it out like a plateau-y kind of sine wave instead of, you know. But this one, in terms of how it reacts to your input, you can say it's direct, but I would use that word if it is in a C-Class. Like my previous review, there are little movements of the road, of the steering wheel, of your throttle pedal, the interactions of the car with the road and with your inputs are pretty much, you will get to feel it, and it may not be something that buyers of this segment wants, right? If you test drive this E-Class, you know, put aside all these fancy toys, you know, try and feel it, then you go into, you don't have to drive fast, you know, don't just bury the throttle and all that. Just drive at this kind of speeds that we usually drive. Like I'm on this road now, I'm going 90 now, and you can already feel it, you know. You can already feel the little movements, the little stuffs that get sent in, alright? Versus the 5 Series, versus the A6. But nobody cares about the A6 now, it's so expensive, right? Yeah. Alright, I'm going for a morning drive. Later on, I'll be able to see how the car handles. And of course, this one being the 197 horsepower engine with 320 Newton meters, I think is adequate for daily drive. It's not, of course, a powertrain, you know. How times have changed, right? Just 10 years ago, 197 is a Golf GTI horsepower, you know, it's a hot hatch. But now it's just moderate and acceptable. Alright. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video now. And messy traffic's here. Cheers.
When I switched to Pro mileage, in my case, I got 46-47% of savings for that car.
Pro mileage was the only one that gave me 5,000 extra value to cover, yet still cheaper, a lot less.
Turn up!
You know what? Even though with 197 horsepower, this E-Class platform is sporty, you know, whereas the 5 Series just wants you to be very comfortable, smooth, you know. This car is playful. I have to say, I don't know whether Mercedes did this on purpose or not, it is more playful than the 5. It's more reactive and it's more enjoyable to be silly with it. Even though it rolls, yes, the gearbox is really good, the 9-speed G-tronic. I can't wait to go up Genting, but the dampers are not, you know, adaptive or whatnot, so I need to be mindful about it, especially trying to keep up with a Porsche. Even though it is a Porsche SUV, it is a very, very accomplished one. Look at how that car corners, and look at how my car is struggling to keep its lines. Alright? It's trying to keep its lines. It's not as stable as a 5 Series. So, yeah. Silly. This E-Class is not bad. Let's try how this car drives. E200, 197 horsepower, not a lot of power, but with an eager chassis, not so eager suspension, not very eager driving position, but it's alright. The brakes feel good. The rotation of the car needs some time to get used to. You know, it's the kind of car whereby you are turning making a turn, but when you are lifting your throttle or applying the brakes, you will feel the immediate reaction on the car. Alright? So it's a little bit playful, to be honest, but it's not a car that was supposed to be playful. But it can. What I want to know is whether the transmission is clever or not. Tires are pretty good. Transmission is alright. Not a Mazda transmission, kind of smart, but it's okay. Turn in. See, what I like about this E-Class is that, I mean, you never expect that you can turn in like that and the front would, you know, adhere and be obedient enough to just keep its track, but it does. You know? So this E-Class is actually pretty interesting, to be honest. Sometimes when you drive a slow car, it's fun when you can just push it all out, you know. 197 horsepower, just bury the foot on the throttle. Pretty interesting intake sound. See the front end? I'm amazed, judging from the heft of the car, the weight of the car, you know. But I'm surprised that when I put the front into the corner, it just follows and stays there. It doesn't push out. I appreciate that. Certainly handles better than the F10. Would beat the F10 in a heartbeat. Pretty interesting. See, I can tighten the turn. Just like my drive in Mae Hong Son in the E53 AMG, I enjoyed this just as much. Because the E-Class platform, W213 platform, even though in its early iterations were marred by, you know, engine and transmission tunings and all that, right? But it is still a good chassis, a very, very good chassis, all right? A little bit too playful for its segment, if I may, but it's all right. Look at it dance. It's a big car. This is like the size of a W140 S-Class and it's doing this. And not once did the traction control came in and intervene. I am impressed. I'm very impressed with this. The traction control did not once come in. Nice. Of course, that's not the point of this car. I'm just here to make a point and tell you that it is an accomplished car. Is my left foot tired? Yes, because I'm tiptoeing and pinned on that little spot. Like my first complaint of this platform, this generation C-Class and E-Class, on the right-hand drive version, there is no footrest. And I need the footrest when I'm driving like that. Currently, I'm tiptoeing, pinning my toes onto that little bulging spot that Mercedes left out the footrest to be. So, small complaint, I would say, because you're not buying this car to drive like that, right? Nice. Alright, here's the drive. Now I'm gonna head off to Kuala Kubu Baru and join the whole group via Batang Kali. Cheers! I have to be careful with cars coming up because this hour is just cars coming up and not going down. So some more daring individuals would have hazarded a guess that, oh, there are no cars coming down, and they might come into my lane. Yep. Oh, I love this stretch. This is the stretch where you have full visibility to take the apex. But it's more fun to go uphill than downhill, because downhill is... You don't need the apex to build so much speed when it's downhill. But when it's uphill, it's good to make use of the apex. The transmission is not the smartest. See, it's still in D4, even though I've braked so hard. It should have gone to D3, you know, just to manage it a little bit. A little bit of engine braking would have been appreciated here. To be honest, you're making no mistakes when you're buying an E-Class or a 5 Series, to be honest. But if you were to ask me, for this price, the S90 does give you a much better spec. Look at this car, you have these plastic covers as speakers, you know, no sunroof, no advanced safety features, or does it? I don't think it has. You know, it's pretty bare spec. Only a reverse camera, no 360 cam, and the seats are basic spec seats. You know, the seats are small, doesn't hold me well enough in place. All you get is the, you know, the ambient lighting, and then of course it's a big and comfortable car. It's well built enough. The infotainment screens are glitzy, nice, but that's about it. This new touchpad is bothersome, annoying when it comes to the controls. I mean, a click wheel would have been so much more straightforward, but they choose to go to what Lexus did and what everybody hated, the haptic, you know, on-screen selection thing that is mimicked by the touchpad. Everybody's screaming at Lexus for doing that, But nobody's screaming at Mercedes-Benz for doing exactly the same thing almost 10 years later. Why? Why? But Mercedes has a touchscreen, so rendering this completely pointless to have. So yeah, having the touchscreen, which Lexus doesn't, is better. Okay? Nothing much to talk about except for being very careful with cars coming uphill. Cheers. Word is the name, they wanted in the chain. Turn on photo watching, he plain Jane.